Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? My name is Tony Rizano, and you're listening to another episode of the world famous, the University of Love, the best podcast in one, two, three galaxies. But, ladies and gentlemen, you and I, we just call this show Online Marketing Moves, and we're coming to you live today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very exciting show for you today. I am very excited to be talking to you today. Ladies and gents, I have a question for you. This is mainly for ladies, but gentlemen, well, I know a portion of you gentlemen would like to answer this question as well. So by all means, go ahead. $1,000 or a dinner with Beyonce? Which one would you choose? It's it's a very simple question. It's a good question. Where would you want to go eat dinner with Beyonce at? Where would you want to go? You know, what would you want to what would you want to yap about? Huh? What would you want to do? I bring it up because I remember a while ago they had a question. It was like $500,000 or dinner with Jay Z. Give me my $500,000, will you? And so my friend, he gave me that idea. He said you should pose that question on your show. I said, you know what? That's a pretty good idea because you never know about people. Would they? How much would they? If I asked my wife $500,000 a dinner with AJ of the Backstreet Boys, she might just choose that dinner with AJ. Okay, I only say that because my wife she went up to Connecticut this year and she went to '90s Con and she met one of her favorite people, entertainers, AJ McCann of the Backstreet Boys. Okay, and I was just happy that she came back home. He didn't run off with her, so I appreciate that, AJ. But no, would you have $500,000 or would you have dinner with Beyonce? And the reason why I bring this up is because I saw my wife. She went to the Beyonce concert the other day. She said Beyonce puts on a great show, and I thought, man, you know what? If we're discussing marketing and we're discussing selling products and we're just discussing all this stuff, you have to look at, there's no, there's books you can read, there's formulas you can go by, but if you study people and if you look at people and if you just if you just go, you go to certain places and you go, oh man, they got everything, they do everything, down pat. You might go to I go, this is a place I take my car to. They send you texts every month, they send you deals every month. They call you, they ask about your car. They say, hey, we got this deal going this month. We got this, we got that. And don't forget that, they go, oh, 3 months ago you said, you didn't need this service. Do you need it now? They do a great job of, following up, ladies and gentlemen. It's very important. I'm not gonna think about, Beyonce, my wife, she came back with a t-shirt, her and her bestie. They came back with a couple of t-shirts, and I thought, that's cool. And I was looking at the t-shirt, and it was like a nice, nice piece of cotton. I know I know a little bit about cotton, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So I'm a cotton expert. If you know, you know. But I thought to myself, oh, this is nice. My wife, she told me the price, and I go, you gotta sell merchandise. And I thought, man, I got a couple t-shirts. I've got a couple t-shirts that, I had some images made, and I got the t-shirts, but I haven't I haven't sold any yet. I haven't printed them up. Number one, I'm gonna tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. You got to get a team. You got to get a little team going. The faster you get a team going, the better off you will be. I have um not to be comparing me and Beyonce when it comes to all this, you know, merchandise and selling all this stuff. She has the whole team. I don't think she's designing shirts and doing all this. She might look at it. They might say, "What do you think?" And she might say, "Yeah," but they have a whole team. You and I, we got to get we might you might not be able to get full time members, but you want to get somebody quick as possible, as quick as you can afford. Maybe you can get somebody for free. But these days people don't people. A lot of people don't see the vision, baby. So trying to get somebody to work pro bono, good luck with that. Okay. But anyway, I'm telling you this: we are going to land this plane the right way. Okay. We talked about the car place. They do a good job of following up. Beyonce, she does a great job of, and we talked about this before on the show. The woman, she comes out with a product. Hey, she has. We're just gonna use Cowboy Carter. Cowboy Carter was a country album. Okay, boom, coming out with a country album. Here's a country album. Boom, they comes out with the song. This ain't Texas. Woo, and all that. And I remember she performed. You showcase your product. She performed, and I think on Amazon or Netflix. Somebody had a Christmas day. It was either a Christmas football game, and she performed down in Houston. I remember that she performed down in Houston. So now it's like, hey, here's my product. I'm gonna perform. I'm gonna show my audience and show the world. The the product. The product is the Cowboy Carter album. Okay, so she did the song or whatever, and then it was like a month or two later, she announced a tour, and the tour is where the direct marketing comes in. It's like, hey, I got a CD, and now I promoted my product, so you see the product, and now we are going to go we take this product and we're going to sell it to you, in your city. So we're gonna go on tour, and the tickets ain't cheap, and that's okay because after a while, listen, some people perform in clubs and that's okay. Some people perform in, stadiums, like basketball stadiums, and that's cool. Some people perform in arenas, football stadiums, and that's where Beyonce is at. Gone are the days of her riding around in the Sprinter van. You know what I mean. I'm pretty sure when she started off, she was in the Sprinter van, and when she was with Destiny's Child, they was all in the Sprinter van in 1994. 93, doing all that, going to different rodeos and all this stuff. But now, you have a product, you sell the product, you go on tour, and then you come to the city. Hey, people buy the tickets, they buy the merchandise. I'm pretty sure she has, different deals with different cities. They have all this stuff worked out. It's a way to connect with your fans. You want to no matter who you are, no matter how big your audience gets, it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 people. It doesn't matter if you have 10,000 people. You have 100,000 people. You want to be selling a product to the people. Direct marketing is always a great way to go, and that's what this is. Because it's like, hey, here's the product. I got the CD. People can stream the CD or they can buy the CD. Most people are going to stream the CD. Only a real fan would go out. Only a real fan would go out and buy a CD. Only a true fan would go out and buy a CD. I'm just kidding. But these are real fans. So she has real fans, and they want to see her. They want to see her perform. Because my wife, you know, I asked the question, and now it's probably a dumb question, but I asked my wife. My wife went to the last tour, and I think the tour before that. And I asked my wife, I said, "Are you going to this one?" And she looked at me, she said, "Of course. What do you mean? What do you mean?" And she's like, "Every tour that she has is different. And it's like a movie. Okay?" And I said, "Okay." And that was it. And my wife went, and I was like, "How was it?" She was like, "Amazing as always." So Beyonce, whatever she charges, whatever the people pay, does not matter to you and I. What matters is she has a product, she promotes the product, does a great job of promoting the product, and she delivers on said product because all these people always walk away happy, satisfied. It was worth the money. And it doesn't matter what you charge, ladies and gentlemen. The, it doesn't matter if you have audiobook and you want to charge $1,000 for the audiobook. If the person that buys it feels satisfied, they feel justified with the purchase, that's all that matters. Does not matter the price, does not matter, that does not matter one bit. You gotta, you got to, you gotta come out of the, oh, I shouldn't charge this or I shouldn't charge that. You can charge what you want to. Okay? If you have a demand, we all know, it's a formula, we all know this. If you have a demand and people want to buy, you're able to charge whatever you want to charge. And a lot of times people will say like this, I'm pretty sure if Beyonce was charging $1 a ticket, people would probably say, what's wrong with this concert? I don't want to $1 a ticket. Ugh, ugh, you know? I mean, people like to complain about price sometimes, but they will pay, they will pay for what they want to pay. If the weed man doubled the price on the weed, I bet you something, most of y'all that smoke dope, you would pay double the price, okay? So we have to think, you have to remember, hey, pricing, do not be ashamed of what you charge. If you can charge, if you can charge a great amount of money and people are willing to buy, that's all that matters. Price does not matter. Okay? People are going to buy. People are going to buy. People like to, especially these days, people like to feel more exclusive. They think they're in an exclusive club. No, my wife, she got her ticket. Her and her friend, they've been to the On the Run tour. They've been to the Cowboy Carter tour. They've been to the whatever other tours they got. So I'm pretty sure when it comes to the Beyonce fandom, if they're talking to somebody, they go, "Oh no, I've been to these shows." Blah 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 blah. Somebody else might be like, "Oh, I've only been to one," and then it's like, "You've only been to one? You can't be that much of a fan, okay?" And so you start to get that. And that's okay. And this is what you want, okay? Beyonce has her own universe and the multiverse, okay? This is the Beyonce multiverse. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. That is what you would that is what you want, okay? When it comes to your business, when it comes to you, when it comes to becoming a brand, and you want your own universe, okay? You want your own island, okay? And Beyonce, she's in the same category as Marvel. She's in the same category with Star Wars. She's in the same category, you know. She's in the multiverse. She's in the 90-day Beyonce multiverse. Okay, we're in the Beyonce universe, and she has a product. She goes around selling the product, doing the show, you know. And afterwards, I'm sure that, like last time, my wife, she went to the concert. They did all this, and then they had a movie, a one night movie. My wife paid, I forget, it was like $30, I think, to go watch a movie about the concert. I thought, man, squeeze that lemon, and that's another thing, ladies and gentlemen, squeeze that lemon as much as you can. Okay. Now I have some advice for Beyonce universe. Now, if I was her, you know, I'm just saying, you know, at, in the next few years, I would start working towards the Beyonce Knowles Carter Museum right there in Houston, Texas. Okay, why? Because you can get with the city of Houston. You can work out a deal. You can get a nice building. And this woman has been around since beginning. This woman has been around since my teenage years. You know, we about the same age. I'm a couple years older than her, and so you have 20 something years of shows. You have 20 something years of albums. You have movies. You have a whole museum where you can start from the beginning. They can bring out old pictures. The museum, that's what you're looking for because eventually, you know, you're not going to want to at some point you're not going to tour as much, at some point You're gonna be like, that's it for me. And so you start the museum. Listen, one of these days, there's one museum that I want to go to. Okay, and it's the Three Stooges Museum, and it's in Philadelphia apparently. And one day I'm going to go to the Stooges Museum, ladies and gentlemen. I'm big on the Stooges. Okay, me and my brother, cousin, we grew up. We used to watch the Three Stooges. I am going to go one day to the Three Stooges Museum, and I am going to, I am going to crack up while I'm in the Three Stooges Museum. I know most of the history of the Three Stooges. I know this already, but it'd be cool for me to go to the museum, and it would be cool. My wife would take my daughter to Houston, lickety split, to go see the Beyonce Knowles Carter Museum. Okay, and you could have the stuff with Destiny's Child because they was a big time group. They had a lot of you can have that you can have statues, you can have pictures from from the beginning, Destiny's Child to the first album, you know where she won a bunch of Grammys, to all these tours and all these things, and you can have all of that in the museum, and people would come all the time. I mean, you've ever been to Graceland? You go to Memphis, man. Listen, you go to Memphis. What do people do? Oh, I gotta go to Graceland. I've been to Graceland. My wife's been to Graceland. My baby brother's been to Graceland. He took his wife to Graceland. Okay, you go to Graceland. It's a whole thing. They got the house. They got the place where you go across the street. Me and my wife, we went over there and had ice cream, some kind of like restaurant, I think. Graceland is a whole entity. Okay, you can have you might want to call it the Beehive Museum or whatever. But I'm just saying you can have all that. You can have the movies, the blah blah blah. Eventually, I'm sure she'll probably write a book. It's like I was listening to Barbara Streisand. I was listening to Barbara Streisand book. She had a book. It was a great book, by the way, too. And Barbara Streisand. You don't realize how much music she produced, how many movies she's been in. And you think, man, Barbara Streisand done a lot of stuff. And she wrote a book, and I don't know if Beyonce is gonna write a book, but because Barbara Streisand, she had a lot of, she was married to Elliot Gould, and they broke up. She had the son. Then she dated the Andre Agassiz, the Don Johnsons, this one, that one. Eventually, she got with Josh Brolin's daddy. But what I'm telling you is, it was a very exciting book, and I thought to myself, man, Barbara Streisand should have some type of little museum, because she's won an Oscar, she won a Grammy, I think she won a Tony, and I'm like, man, Barbara Streisand. You don't realize, because I knew Barbara Streisand. I knew some of her work, but I didn't know it in depth. So I listened to the book, and I thought, man, Barbara Streisand should have a museum. So that made me think. Beyonce, I know a lot of her work because, like I said, she came around when I was, in my adult years. So you see it, and now I'm married to a woman who's a big fan. And so I'm thinking, man, you gotta have a museum. It would help any any tourist money any city could get. We got the in Atlanta, TI, you got the Trap Museum. The Trap Museum. When I drove Lyft every now and then, pick people up at night in the evening. They would say, hey, what are you doing? I'm in town. I'm going to the Trap Museum, to the Trap Cafe. That's cool. Museums are always a good thing. And we need more museums. And so I'm going on, I'm going on and on about museums. But the point is, you, we got the whole universe right here. We got the whole multiverse. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you want. This is what you strive for. Does your multiverse have to be this big? Nope. But what you want, ladies and gentlemen, you want to be more of an onion than anything. You want to have layers, that you can peel. You don't want to You don't want to be a one track pony, okay? And this is why I tell you, eventually you want to get off that internet, okay? I want to get out the internet. You want to get out the internet. Eventually, you want to get out the internet. You want to get into real life. You want to get into the mainstream. You could because there's always going to be more money to get in the real world. Online is good. Online is great. Make your presence known. But if you could sell something offline as well as online, ladies and gentlemen, you are in there. You know, if you have a book and you can a physical book and you can sell that book and that book can be shipped to people and whenever you go do interviews, you can bring that book with you and prop that book up. Ladies and gentlemen, you are doing something, right? That's where you want to be. We all eventually you want to get off the internet. And a lot of people get stuck on the YouTube and all that. YouTube is always going to switch it around. YouTube is always going to find somewhere to, because they just stopped doing like, hey, you can't remix people's content or you can't, sit there and point and all that stuff. And YouTube is not going to cut you a check. So they're going to cut a lot of people's ankles off. So if you're not being creative, if you're not being, forward thinking, you're going to get left behind and you do not want to do that. You want to be original, ladies and gentlemen. You want to have original content. Okay. You want to use your own brain. So this is why I'm telling you. You want to get into the multiverse of things, okay? You want to be creating. You want to be sitting there thinking, what can I do? You know, try to get on the radio. Try to, hey, go do a commercial. Go do something. Show up at somebody's doorstep. Okay, as I told you yesterday, don't should you join a group and be and not get paid and just be known but not make any money, or do you want to swim upstream and to create your own thing and your own brand and take it from there? I would definitely start swimming myself. All right, but ladies and gentlemen, that's it. I can't wait to go to the Beyonce Museum in Houston, Texas, and I want some credit for my great idea about this museum. Okay, but my wife will definitely make me go. But in the meantime and in between time, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. We'll be back tomorrow with the all new episode of Online Marketing Moves. But until then, my name is Tony Rizano. Thank you for listening. As always, everybody, God bless and peace.